Denver Broncos at Miami Dolphins, 1 p.m. Eastern, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. 85 Fahrenheit, scattered thunderstorms, 7 miles per hour. Let's go into the line history here for this one. And we'll start with the spread. We have Miami sitting as 6.5-point favorites. And, every single game the Broncos have played, and I know they only played 2, so it's not, but even here, I find them appealing at first look. And when they got off to that fast start on Sunday, I was beating myself up. I didn't want it because I didn't want the hook. I was beating myself up. And then, of course, they fell apart. And watching them fall apart was shocking, absolutely shocking. This opened up at 6.5, the spread, and hasn't moved. And Miami's looked very, very good in their first 2 games of the year. This total is sitting at 48, and it hasn't moved either. So we have a 6.5, we have a point spread, and a total that hasn't moved. Ron Crawford, NFL spreadsheet is in Denver plus 6.5. Spreadsheet last week was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And here we go. It is Denver plus 6.5. It's just crazy. Imagine watching this Broncos team 2 games in and actually wanting to bet them. I mean, what the hell's wrong with me? I can't. Jesus, absolutely ridiculous. But it is my first thought. 44% of the tickets and 88% of cash is on this over. 44 and 88, and it's not moved since it became available yesterday at 3 p.m. So that's interesting. And then the spread has not moved. Let's take a look at the cash for the spread. And that is 22% of the tickets and 65% of cash is on the Broncos. Interesting. And that's why that number is just sitting there. Saturated says Miami's D is better than people think, especially at home. I think watching them play the Chargers gave us maybe a false sense of, what that D is, and we know that Fangio's there and it should change. I can understand that. Broncos coming off that wild 35-33 loss at home versus the Commanders. They lost despite scoring touchdowns on their first 3 drives. I mean, that's the first time they've done that since 2010. Their 18-point blown lead, tied for the 4th largest at home in franchise history. Russell Wilson had a big day, 18 for 32 for 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also ran 6 times for 56 yards, but of course he lost a fumble. Marvin Mims Jr., Brandon Johnson, these guys look great. Why weren't they targeted more? I mean, it just didn't seem to make sense. I mean, you had something that's working and you got away from it. Marvin Mims Jr. caught 2 passes for 113 yards and a touchdown. He ran twice for 10 yards, returned a punt for 45 yards. Looks like the real deal to me. Brandon Johnson caught 2 passes for 66 yards. Both went for touchdowns. I mean, why is he only targeted twice? Cortland Sutton caught 5 passes for 66 yards. What a security blanket the size of Sutton out there. Jerry Jeudy returned from his hamstring injury. He caught 3 passes for 25 yards. He needs to become a bigger part of this offense, and he's coming back from the hamstring issue. Javonte Williams ran 12 times for 44 yards, caught 2 for 14. The defense got pressure on Sam Howell and still couldn't get stops. They finished with 4 sacks, 8 quarterback hits. Howell threw for 299 yards and 2 touchdowns and was a perfect 3 for 3 in the red zone. And for the second game in a row, Kareem Jackson ejected for a dangerous hit that caused a concussion. And there's a lot of wondering whether he'll get suspended now. The Dolphins looked excellent in their 24-17 victory at New England. They outgained the Pats 389-288. Tagovailoa now 5-0 against the Patriots. Coach Belichick, I mean, that's impressive. 21-30 for 249 yards, touchdown, a pick. Jalen Waddle caught 4 passes for 86 yards, but he took a hard hit late, and he's now in concussion protocol. So if he's not in, then Braxton Berrios will get the main run, and River Craycraft may as well. Belichick was able to slow down Tyreek Hill. He caught 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown, but Raheem Mostert ran 18 times for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. This Miami defense was strong throughout. They constantly applied pressure on Mac Jones, 4 sacks, 8 quarterback hits. They held the Patriots to just 288 total yards and only 2 entries into the red zone. Salvon Ahmed left with a groin injury, backup running back. I don't think that hurts him that much. And Xavier Howard had an interception. Take it away here, a fascinating one. Broncos, Dolphins, and the spreadsheet play of the day is Denver plus 6.5.
I immediately wanted the Broncos looking at this game, just like you. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I think they could have easily been 2-0. And I think if they were 2-0, what is the spread if they're 2-0? 4? Maybe a 4.5, maybe a 3.5. But My issue with this Broncos team, there's two things. And we'll get to the quarterback situation in a minute. But the secondary, I mean, where we thought the Broncos were going to be strong, they're weak. What are they going to do when Tua and the Dolphins roll out their offense when Howell's passing for 300 yards and not throwing any picks? It just blows my mind. I don't understand quite what I'm seeing on this defense for the Broncos. Their coverage is ranked 27th in the NFL, and their run defense is 20th, allowing 5 yards per carry. They lost 2 consecutive games as home favorites. I mean, this is exactly where you would want to back the team, right? Going on the road, I think the number looks a little bit short at 6.5. I just can't believe what I've seen out of this defense. So it's really hard to get behind the Broncos, especially going up against the Dolphins. But on offense, let's talk about Russell Wilson a little bit. Their offensive line is middle of the pack, and I think that's overrated because they're allowing the highest pressure rate in the NFL right now. They're inefficient on third down. Russell Wilson in week 2, the highest pressure rate and the worst pass rate and the highest pocket time in the NFL. So he was sacked 7 times. It's because he's holding on to the ball too long and he's getting pressure. So despite how good the numbers look, and he didn't throw a lot, he threw 1 pick, but I guess he didn't protect the ball all that great. But still, he had 8 poor passes, worst pocket time. I mean, his numbers are not good despite the 308 passing yards. So it's hard to get behind the Broncos, even though at the 6.5, it's got to be the right side. I mean, especially with where this number sits. I mean, I think this number is kind of showing strength towards the Broncos. When you got the Dolphins, you got the MVP of the league right now in Tua, making quick decisions, taking exactly what the defense gives him. He's accurate. He's unblitzable. McDaniel knows exactly how to handle him with the elite upside at receiver. I mean, they just got all the pieces on the offensive side. Man, this is really tough. And actually, the one thing that I do have on the Dolphins is that they're really bad in the red zone on the defensive side, worse than the NFL. But it's just really hard. I could see value on a teaser maybe with the Dolphins. I really think there's ways you can get a middle on this game and cash on both sides if you're paying attention. Oh, and here you go. Home favorites that won on the road as a favorite. This is talking about the Dolphins with the line between 6 and 7, 8-4 ATS, 12-1 straight up. But if you look at the same metrics, the same criteria, but you put the parameter that it's got to be within the 5th week. So in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, only 1-4 ATS and 4-1 straight up. So I really think there's an opportunity to get a good middle in this game. I don't know if you want to, put a teaser with the Eagles and look for a live Broncos bet, or you might even be able to get them both live. But I do think that I'm going to be looking to play this game that way.
Sharpie says Patriots, Chargers defense could not get to Tua. Offensive line is legit. Their D is underrated. Miami minus 6.5, please. Tua going to light up the Broncos like the 4th of July.
Sharpie's big on the Dolphins, huh?
And I get it, but I sit here and I find the 6.5 appealing. And if this does not move to 7 and there's 80% of the cash on the Dolphins, then I'm going to move on the Broncos because there's enough for me that will correlate. Now, if this moves to 7, then I'll just lay off and spreadsheet play today. I agree with, and JW says Dolphins look like a Super Bowl contender. Birdie says odd that they moved it to 6.5, put it smack dab in the Wong range. Yeah. Satchel says Peyton gives me all kinds of clues that this team would be bad preseason. All the talk about how bad the coach was last year, just an excuse for their sub 500 record. Peyton has got to be just livid with the situation here. Okay. Well, I'm going to need more time here. Ron Crawford spreadsheet play today on the Denver Broncos, and I find this appealing. Let's roll on.